In biology, taxonomy and comparative anatomy go hand in hand. In this laboratory practice, we will be modeling several components that dive into structure and function pertaining to biology. Here is an articulated pigeon. Here is an articulated toad. Ligaments connect bone to bone. Tendons connect bone to muscle. Additionally, here are a few items that model the idea of disarticulation. Here is a pelvis, which is not articulated. It's not connected through ligaments right now. Here's a vertebra, and here's a skull. These all model the idea of disarticulation because they are not connected currently like the pigeon or like the toad. While we have talked about the skeletal system, now we are introducing something that is unique in its relevance to structure and function. Here is a phrenology model. This model is significant in its meaning behind its structure and function. Taking a look at this model, I can look at several areas that define how my brain is structured. For instance, this area of my head, of my brain, may be responsible for selfishness or humor. In the second part of this video, we will be modeling structure and function of the muscular system through a medical animation. In this animation, we have several muscles, ligaments, and bone landmarks that will be discussed. The first muscle of the scapular girdle is the supraspinatus muscle, as seen on the side of the screen. This muscle is responsible for abduction of the arm. This is abduction, this is adduction. An argin is exactly how it sounds. A fossa is a depression. For instance, the argin of the supraspinatus muscle is the supraspinous fossa. The insertion, exactly as it sounds, is the greater tubercle of the humerus. A tubercle is in many ways like a bone landmark or another important area anatomically. Next, another landmark area is the spine of the scapula. Think, why is it called supraspinatus, above the spine of the scapula? Why is it called infraspinatus, below the spine of the scapula? Next, the infraspinatus muscle will be discussed. The origin of the infraspinatus muscle is the infraspinous fossa. The insertion of the infraspinatus muscle is the greater tubercle of the humerus. Next, we will be modeling glenohumeral ligaments of the humerus, as well as the coracoid and the acromion, as seen through this animation. It is important to remember that these are anatomical components of the shoulder nonetheless. Lastly, we will be modeling the subscapularis muscle. The origin of the subscapularis muscle is the subscapularis fossa. The insertion is the lesser tubercle of the humerus. The subscapularis muscle, as described here, medially rotates. The infraspinatus laterally rotates the arm. We have some follow-up questions that should help students digest what they have learned more easily. The first question is, describe either the skeletal or the muscular system. The second question is, summarize the difference between articulation and disarticulation. The third question is, contrast one of the two associated pairs together. A, origin and insertion, or B, articulation and disarticulation. The extra credit question is, who is this man? Why is he important in the history of medicine and the history of healthcare? In this video, we have some follow-up answers that correspond to the past questions. The first answer corresponds to describe either the skeletal or muscular system. The skeletal system comprises of bones and their landmarks. Ligaments connect bone to bone, tendons connect bone to muscle. The muscular system, such as seen with the scapular girdle, comprises of origins, insertions, and actions. The second answer corresponds to this question. Summarize the difference between articulation and disarticulation. In many anatomy books, disarticulation occurs with amputation. Articulation, like the pigeon or toad, typically is not disconnected. Have you ever heard of the phrase an articulated skeleton? The third answer corresponds to this question. Contrast one of the two associated pairs together. A. Argent and insertion, or B. Articulation and disarticulation. Already covering articulation and disarticulation, an argent such as a supraspinatus fossa or infraspinatus fossa is exactly how it sounds. An insertion such as a greater or lesser tubercle is exactly as it sounds. This is the corresponding answer that addresses the extra credit question. Who is this man? Why is he important in the history of medicine and healthcare? This man is Phineas Gage, a railroad construction foreman who, through an accident, survived a large rod being driven into his head, which destroyed much of his frontal lobe. He survived this accident, however.